Hey everybody, Spartn137 here. Today we are going to talk about death. This morning between 10 and 11 o'clock, my mom's mom died after her battle with cancer. And I don't know, like usually in all my videos, most of you would know that I try to keep things pretty lighthearted. I don't get into the heavy. But today I think I'm going to do this because, everybody goes through it. Everybody can relate. So, of course my dog hops up here. Hannah, lay down. I'm trying to be serious here. Anyways, ruin the moment. So, my mom's mom died today. We knew she was going to go. She knew she was going to go. She's been battling cancer for she had been battling cancer for almost a year. And she stopped responding to treatments, and it got to the point where the doctor said that she wasn't going to make it through the end of the month, and that the only thing they could do was make her comfortable at home. They couldn't keep her in the hospital, some insurance junk, I don't know. So they set her up at home, and they would send like a in-home care, something like that, to her. Excuse me. And so we got the call saying that she had passed on, and we went over to her house to go say our final respects, because the funeral home was going to take her from the house, and there isn't going to be a viewing, so they had to get the body ready for the burial. Get her body. Man, I'm like really insensitive, aren't I? Anyway, so we get there, and I go in to say goodbye, and there's all my grandma's kids are there. My mom, her older sister, her brothers are all there, and everyone's crying, everyone's upset, and I go inside the house to go see my grandma and go pay my final respects. So I go in, I stand next to her, I do my thing, and then I go and I sit down out of the way. And then other people were coming in. It was getting kind of crowded, so I went outside to go sit in the truck. And then I was out there, just pondering. I'm sad. And someone came up to me, and they wanted to know why I wasn't crying. And the only response I have to that is, I don't cry at death. I don't know why. I never have. When I was little, even at funerals, stuff like that, I've never cried at a family member's or an acquaintance's death. I don't know, it's weird for me. I think that it's because I've accustomed myself to know that everyone is going to die. Everyone I know and love will someday die. And there's nothing we can do about it. No one's going to live forever. And I think it's a pretty healthy way. I mean, I've come to terms with death. Going through some of the life experiences that I've gone through, you have to learn to just let stuff happen. You can't fight stuff. You can't hold stuff off. And if you're going to have to go through it, face it head on. Don't try to run. And I kind of feel the same way about death. I will admit, the only death, like even when I start thinking about it, I do cry. The only death that I know I will absolutely cry on would be my twin brother. And oh, whew, there we go already. We're fraternal twins, but I can honestly say that a twin's bond to their sibling is just as strong as the mother's bond to their child. I know a lot of people probably get upset with that. You don't know, you're not a mom. You'll never know the feeling of carrying a baby in your body. You'll never know the feeling of sharing a almost, the only way I can describe it is almost like a consciousness, yeah. Um, that is one of the very few things that is unexplainable for me. I don't know how to describe it. My mom has a twin brother, so they would probably know. But and every twin out there will know the same thing. You will never hate anybody as much as you hate your twin, but you'll never love anybody more than you love your twin. And a lot of people, twins especially, realize that too late. I know a couple of brothers who are identical twins, and for whatever reason they had a falling out. They did not get along for about 4 or 5 years, and then one of them got in a car accident and died, and the other brother was torn apart. And just think about it. That does get me teary. That will probably be the only funeral that I know I will cry out. My parents, maybe. I mean, I love them and all, but I just don't cry at death. I mean, except for my brothers. I don't know. Maybe it's because in some way it would represent my own death. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's some psychological thing. If anyone's out there, a psychologist, maybe you could like read into what I'm thinking, read my facial cues and whatnot, figure out what's going on with me. Maybe I'm broken. I've also been told that I'm weird because I can't cry at a real person's funeral, but there are a few book series that I've read, and I get really attached to characters. And in some of the books I've read, someone's died, and it breaks my heart. And it's not just because I've liked that character. I cry for what other characters in the book would be feeling. I don't know. I'm pretty weird. I can cry at chick flicks. I cried at during A Walk to Remember, The Notebook, P.S. I Love You. I don't care. I'll admit it. I'm a wuss when it comes to that stuff. But death is just something I've never been able to cry at. I mean, I'm sad, of course. I don't think there's any way to get around being sad over someone's death unless you didn't know them. I've had plenty of funerals that I've had to go to. I don't like going to funerals. It's not my thing. It's really awkward, especially when you didn't know the person at all. There have been a few funerals that I've been told about. It was like, oh, hey, we got to go to this person's funeral. He was your uncle. I was like, wait, what? I never heard that name till 10 seconds ago, and I got to go, and the funeral's like 3 hours away in another part of the state. Not a fan of going to funerals. Super awkward. I mean, you got people there who are grieving for a loved one. People who are emotionally distraught. And what are you supposed to say to them? You know, it was their time. People don't want to hear that. People don't want their loved one's time to be up. They want to stay together as long as possible. I know some people get really, really upset. Even people who practice Christianity or other religions, and when they're told God took them home, or it was their time, it was God's will. I've seen people explode at that. I've seen a fist fight at a funeral home because someone made that comment to someone else trying to comfort them. And you know, there's no right thing to say because what is there to say? I mean, there's not much that can be said to comfort someone who's in a state of grief. We all cope with grief differently. Me, I just reflect on what I knew about the person, like with my grandma. I sat there for a while, reflecting back on, you know, when I was smaller, we would spend a lot more time together. She would give us little presents, and we'd hang out, we'd have fun. And then I would go on to think, you know, the past couple of years, you know, we just kind of slowly drifted apart. We didn't see her as much. She still came over for holidays, still celebrated Christmas, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, stuff like that, but we just didn't spend as much time. There wasn't a connection that little kids are able to make with a lot of their older family members. And, you know, I do regret that. I do kind of wish I'd spent more time with her. but I'm happy with the time that I did get to spend with her. And it's the same way with every other funeral that I've gone to. If I've known the person, I'll reflect back on the good times, even the bad times. I think that's a good way to heal. Is you know, don't focus on what you've lost. Focus on what you had. And that's the only advice I've ever really been able to give anybody. Is I don't know. It's kind of hard to put into words that'll make sense. I don't know. I'm trying. It's not coming. I don't know. I think if people concentrate on too much of what they don't have anymore, it just sits there and festers in their mind and in their heart, and that just leads to bitterness. And it prolongs the healing process a lot more. A lot of people try to run away from the fact that there's been a death. Some people will deny it, or they'll be so heartbroken that they don't want to let go. They don't want to acknowledge that the person has died. All they want is to see that person again. They'll keep hundreds of pictures, memories, videotapes to remember them by, because they don't want to let them go. And I can understand that. I just think there's a limit. I know one of my old friends I used to work with, his wife died, and it took him 4 or 5 years to move on, but he was able to do it. But he wasn't. The first year was the worst because he still had 3 kids to take care of by himself, and they were all young. I think the oldest one was 12, and the first year was the hardest for him because obviously he wasn't used to not having his wife around. He had his kids to take care of. They missed their mom. He missed his wife. Someone that he had decided to spend the rest of his life with, and devoted everything he had to her. And let's see. He allowed himself grieving time. He asked his parents, whenever he would start feeling it really bad, he would ask his parents to take the kids for like a weekend, and he would drink heavily, get completely trashed, and then he'd sober up again. And I'm not sure what all he did. I do know that he drank maybe once every couple of months. He got really wasted, and then he'd sober up and he'd be a little bit better. He'd start looking better. He'd start doing better at work. His kids noticed that their dad was doing better. Dad wasn't always locked in his room crying. And he didn't, after the first year and a half, he started letting some of her stuff go, some of his wife's things go, like pictures. He would take down pictures that he had. He didn't get rid of them all. He still kept some. And there was trying to remember, I think it was a lamp. It was like a lamp or like a light stand of some kind that she had given him for one of their anniversaries, I think it was, and he kept that. But he put it away so he wouldn't see it every day because it would just bring the pain back. And he wasn't trying to ignore the pain or get rid of it. He was coping, and I think he did quite well. I mean, it still took him a few years. He didn't start dating till about the 6th year after his wife had died, and he still wore his wedding ring until he met a new girl, and it took everything he had to get the courage up to date another woman. And he told her right away, my wife is dead, and he talked to her about it, and I guess she understood. I mean, she still allowed him grieving time. She didn't push the boundaries. She didn't go in and start taking over. She helped him through the grieving process, and I think that's a good thing to practice, especially for spouses who have lost a loved one. their significant other. Uh, yeah, funerals. Let's talk about funerals. I've never been good at funerals, like I said earlier. Super awkward. Most of the funerals I've been to are people I didn't know at all, or didn't know well. Uh, Never cried at a funeral. You go to the viewing, you walk up the alley, you go see their loved one in their casket, or if their ashes are there, you got the urn with pictures around it. And you have the families and close relatives in their first rows, and they're crying their eyes out, and then you always have that minister of some kind saying all those pretty words. They've gone to a better place. They're always reading the scripture out of the Bible, even if it was someone who didn't believe wholeheartedly in the Lord, or what have you, whatever you believe in. There's always some kind of scripture reading, whether it be from the Bible or some other text, saying about how they've gone on to a better place. And I'm a dick, okay? Some of these people I've known just enough to know that they were real assholes, and I'd be sitting there listening to the guy up on the podiums, and they're saying he was such a good man. He did everything for everybody. He never said anything bad about anybody. It was like, wow. It was like, nobody knew this guy. I mean, wow, this guy was an asshole. They shouldn't have buried him in a three-piece suit. It's going to be hot where he's going, maybe. And I know a lot of the people that are there know the truth about it too. And that's one thing I hate about funerals is they try to make the person better than they were. I've never heard anything bad said at funerals. Maybe I just haven't been to enough. I mean, I've been to quite a few. We have a big family, and most of them are pretty old. But I don't know. In my funeral, I want the truth said. It was like, he was an idiot. I'm an ass sometimes too. I mean, I'm a dick, and I have no problem with that. I know who I am. I know what I've done. Do I want all the skeletons brought out of the closet? No. Not everyone needs to know everything. But I don't want it to be made out that I was the best saint in the world. Because I'm not. I've done stupid things. We all have. I don't know. That's just one thing I hate about funerals is it's almost like they're putting all this flowery messages into the funeral so that the guests there feel better about the person that they've lost. And I think that's bullshit. I really do. I don't agree with that at all. One time I would love to go to a funeral after the pastor, the minister, whoever it is, the officiator, gets down off the podium and they allow people to say stories, whatever. I want someone to just stand up and is like, you know what? This one time, me and Jerry over there, we got in a fight, we duked it out, and I broke his nose, he crushed my nut, and after that we became best friends. I mean, even though I hated his guts, he was a great friend. Somebody who would just be down to earth about it, be honest, and, sit there and say, it's like, you know what? He fucked up, but it's okay. We still loved him. He was a good guy. He wasn't perfect, but he was still good. That's how I want my funeral to be. And I think it would be a big relief for a lot of the people, especially the ones who knew the person and knew how they were, to hear a story like that, because they'd be like, yeah, it was true. He was an asshole. That's the kind of funeral I wish to attend someday. Maybe someday I'll attend a funeral to someone I know. I don't know, maybe if prayerfully sometime in the far future, maybe in like 70 years, one of my best friends dies. I'll be able to go to the funeral. It's like, you know what? This guy was a dick. Every time you turn around, he had something stupid to say, but he was a good guy. I couldn't imagine my life without him, but he could have been better. I don't know. Maybe, like I said earlier, maybe I'm nuts. Something's wrong with me, maybe. The last thing I want to talk about is the funeral itself, like what's done with the body. And I know a lot of people, they say, it's like, oh, I want my funeral to be beautiful. You know, I want this certain casket. I want it done this way. I want these kind of flowers at my funeral. It's my funeral. I want it this way. This is what's going to be done. And I know some funerals cost upwards of $30,000. $30,000? Are you nuts? That's insane. I mean, and then you get the exact opposite. You get people like, you know what? Pine box, bury me in the backyard. I don't care. You know, my kind of people. I like that. And then you got the people who want to be cremated. Cremation, it's a lot cheaper, but I'm actually surprised how many people have a problem with the idea of their dead body or a body of their relatives being burned to ash. Some people have a real issue with it. I'm not too sure why. Maybe it's because maybe it's because they relate the fires of cremation with hell, maybe. I don't know. I know that my abuela, my dad's grandma, she didn't want to be burned, and she was Mexican. Like, we're talking like came to America from Mexico, spoke Spanish, everything. They lived in Texas, and I remember she was telling my grandpa one day that she didn't want to be cremated. And he's like, "Why, Mom? Why wouldn't you want to be cremated?" Because Huelo, her husband, said that he wanted to be cremated, I guess. She's like, "No, no, no, you can't do that. Why? Why would you want to do that?" And so my grandpa, their son, who was the oldest of their 16 kids, asked, "Well, why don't you want to be cremated? Why do you want this big old expensive funeral?" You know, he was just curious. She's like, "It'll hurt." And he's like, "What? It'll hurt?" It doesn't make sense, right? Some people are actually really scared of their body being burned. And I do know a couple people who have made the connection with cremation with the fires of hell for some reason. They're like, if you burn my body, I will be in hell because then my soul can't go to heaven and stuff like that. And I think that's weird. I do believe in the Bible. I do practice it to some extent. I'm not perfect. I claim to go to a Christian church. I don't claim to be Christian because I'm not Christ-like at all. I do swear, obviously, and I do sin most of the time unintentionally. But so that people don't have a reason to say that I'm a hypocrite, I don't say I'm a Christian. So, anyways, I try my best to practice Christianity, and in the Bible, it talks about why try to take all this stuff with you to heaven when it's just going to stay on earth. You can't take anything with you to heaven. It's your soul. And you have all these people who are afraid of losing their earthly body because their soul won't be able to rest in peace or something. And I don't know, maybe it's just because of the way I was brought up, but I find that kind of weird. How people can sit there and say, yes, they've gone to heaven and stuff like that, but they will not even consider having their body cremated. Am I a cremation? Am I pro-cremation? Pro-cremation, almost like procreation. Anywho, sorry, distraction. I'm for cremation in that I think it's simpler and easier. Maybe I'm just lazy. I don't know. I think it's a good way to go, especially with times being as they are now. The rise of funeral costs is astronomical, and it costs a few $1,000s just for a little, just for a little rectangle of earth to be cut out and your box to be buried in there, and then you get a little piece of stone that costs a few $100s. It says your name and your birthday and then the day you died. You know, it's messed up, man. I think a good alternative to being buried in a casket or cremation is what I plan on doing. And I've told my parents about this in case something happens. Everyone that I know I've talked to about this. I will be donating my body to science. After I die, it's going to be there. I am an organ donor. So if my heart can go to help someone, that's what it's going to do. I die. They're going to whisk my body away. Not harvest. That sounds a little too brusque. They're going to, wow, there's really no good way to say it. Fine, fuck it. They take my shit out of me. Ah, that sounds even worse. They take my organs out. They put them in a safe place, and they can give to someone who needs it. My kidneys, my heart, I don't know, what other kind of transplants do they do? They can't use my eyes because I don't have good vision. I actually have really bad vision. Can't tell because I'm wearing contacts. But if I wore glasses, they'd be like binoculars. You know, kids in medical school, they can't learn how to do an autopsy. They can't learn how to cut open a body, find out how they died, and solve murders and stuff without an actual cadaver there. That will be me. And according to all the documents I've read, when I've looked into it, when you donate your body to science, almost everything is taken care of. Your family almost has no financial burden at all because the hospital pays for the remains, and it is given to the family to settle any funeral arrangements that have been made, like for a viewing and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea, donating your body to science. Now, whether or not they use all my organs, I could really care less. I'm not going to be using them anymore. And so I strongly believe that in my death, if parts of my body could go on to help other people, have at it. Take what you need. Take it all. I don't need it anymore. And some of the people I've talked with agree with that. I don't know if they're going to do the same. Maybe not. That's up to them. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good alternative. You know, if you're not looking to want to be spending a whole lot of money on a funeral, or if your cremation just isn't your thing, consider donating your body to science a go. And you know, they may not be using your organs. They may not be using you in medical school. I do know of a couple people, because I watch Discovery Channel. One man donated his body to science. He was struggling with cancer himself, and so he volunteered to have his body given to this company, and they were doing an experiment on mummification. They were seeing if they could do today what they did way back in Egypt. They were going to embalm him, remove all of his organs, stuff like that, and try to preserve his body the same way that the bodies were preserved way back thousands of years ago. You know, and if that's what happens to my body, I don't care. Like I said, I'm not going to be using it. It's not like I'll be coming back. Hope not. That'd be weird. Waking up dead. Whoa, that's a trippy thought. Waking up dead. How do you do that? Ah, sorry. Random tangent again. So yeah, I mean, maybe I'm a monster because I can't cry at funerals. Probably a monster because I can be honest with myself about how some people were, at least towards me. And maybe I'm a little bit more open-minded than some people when it comes to ways of... What's a delicate way to put this? Ways of... The remains themselves, how to deal with what's left of the body. I don't know. I think that if you are having a hard time with your grieving process, I highly suggest talking to people about it. You know, don't just lock yourself up in your room crying all the time. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it could be very unhealthy. Find someone to talk to. You know, I have heard of people starting to do video blogs to help them cope. You know, they'll just sit there and they'll just pour their heart out. They'll talk. And even though they're not talking directly to somebody, there's someone on the other end of that camera who's watching the video on YouTube or whatever other media you have who can relate. And I think that would be a good way to go. Like, if you don't really want to go anywhere, if you want to stay in your house, you don't want to go anywhere or see anybody, use a webcam. Just talk your heart out. You don't even have to post it online. Just say your feelings out loud. Get it off your chest. If you want to cry, you want to cry, you want to scream, you want to break stuff, do it in moderation. Don't go completely crazy and like start breaking dishes and then go to the post office and start blowing people up. Don't do that. Not cool. Not cool. But I feel that if it helps your grieving process, do it. And then if you're still struggling with it, or if you know someone who's struggling with it, see if you can find some professional help. I mean, sometimes that's what it takes. Someone who understands the human psyche enough that they can help pull that person out of their grief. And yeah, that's just about it. Those are my thoughts on death and the whole process. My own personal opinions about death in general. Yeah, I know a lot of you out there have experienced loss in some form or another. If you have a way that helped you cope with your grief, feel free to post in the comments below. Maybe it was a song you listened to, maybe it was a home video you watched a few times to, remind yourself, pull yourself out of that rut. Put it in the comments below. Don't be afraid to share ideas that might help someone else out of their grief. This video probably won't be too popular. It doesn't bother me, but those who do see it will may learn a thing or two. Parents, talk to your kids about death. Don't be afraid to introduce them to the idea of death, because waiting too long to talk to them about it could emotionally cripple them later on in life. So don't be afraid to talk to family members. Talk to your kids about it. Don't scare the shit out of them. Just let them know. Nobody lives forever, and someday Papa and Grandma are gonna, not be with us anymore. Let them know. And feel free to share this video with anybody if it's helped you at all. I mean, even if you're slightly entertained by it for some reason, maybe you're a monster like I am and you got a little giggle out of it, totally fine with me. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a good day, and take care.